welcome to the April 28th Education and Pupil Services and Finance and Operations Committee meeting. Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge of allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. During this unprecedented time, while schools are closed and social distancing requirements are in place, the Upper Darby School District needs to continue certain aspects of its business, which includes decisions concerning pandemic planning. For this reason, the Upper Darby School District will continue regularly scheduled school board meetings while Governor Wolf's emergency declaration is in place. It is the plan of the school board to hold these meetings with the minimum required departures from normal operating procedures. The Upper Darby School District School Board COVID-19 Special Operating Procedures document outlines expected departures from these normal operating procedures and the policy justification for such departures. At the start of each board meeting, held during the emergency declaration, the board will review the departures from normal operating procedures as well as their justifications. While schools are closed and social distancing requirements are in place, the Upper Darby School District School Board finds it necessary to hold virtual school board and school board committee meetings to complete required business. These virtual meetings will allow for public viewing and participation, following practices already in place for regular meetings. All virtual school board meetings, in addition to allowing near real-time public viewing and participation, will be recorded and the recordings made available after the meeting. In order to hold virtual school board meetings, adjustments need to be made to the following existing board policy. These adjustments have been outlined in the Upper Darby School District School Board COVID-19 Special Operating Procedures. And now the board will vote on this deviation. All those in favor of the deviation, please signify by saying aye.
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 All those opposed, please state your name and say nay or no. Anyone abstaining, please say abstain and say your name. Okay, motion carries. Now, Superintendent McGarry will provide some more detailed information on how the board and the public will engage during this board meeting and future board meetings virtually.
Thank you, Board President Brown. Thank you for joining us virtually. The public is here this evening. I hope engaging with this presentation is we're making every effort to maintain the features that we normally provide during a normal public meeting. With that said, the Upper Darby School District residents who wish to submit comments have been provided with two ways to do so. First, they were to send an email to committee questions at upperdarbysd.org, or they could leave a voicemail at 610-789-7200, extension 2000. Voicemails left at this phone number are forwarded to the committee questions at upperdarbysd.org email. Again, that phone number is 610-789-7200, extension 2000. A link to the district's official YouTube channel has been shared in the board meeting advertisement, in subsequent parent link communications, across the district's Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter, as well as other social media accounts, and posted to the district website. There will be opportunities for public comment, not only during the committee meeting, but also during the special voting meeting. For those wishing to participate during the committee meetings this evening, we ask that when you send either an email to committee@upperdarbysd.org or the phone number 610-789-7200, extension 2000, that you please provide your name, address, and the agenda item you would like to comment on. We will take comments up to the close of each committee meeting, as well as at the conclusion of each report for the special voting meeting. Again, if you would like to leave a comment or ask a question, they will be included on the record. please send an email to committeequestions@upperdarbysd.org, or you can call in and leave a message at 610-789-7200, extension 2000. Please again, leave your name, your address, and the agenda item you are commenting on. Thank you, Board President Brown.
Thank you, Dr. McGarry. The meeting of the Education and Pupil Services Committee will please come to order. I have marked every board member present. I will now turn over the Education and Pupil Services Committee agenda to co-chair Mrs. Curry.
We will now have the Education and Pupil Services Committee meeting. And this evening we have 3 agenda items. The first one is Special Education Plan, which is board action required. The second one is the Institute for Learning, SOAR, supporting ongoing achievement responsibility intervention, which has board action required. And the last one is the 2019 calendar revisions, which has board action required. I believe it is Mr. Marshallak and Miss Kelly that are going to be presenting the meeting this evening.
Yes, good evening. Thank you, Mrs. Curry. So first agenda item is the special education plan. This is the final look at the district plan be proposed to the Department of Education. They originally had a due date of May 1st. There was an extension. However, the district is prepared to submit their report once board approved tonight. If you remember last month, in March, I presented the first look of the special education plan. And since that time, we went through and reviewed it one more time as an administrative team, just to fine-tune any details that may have been overlooked or any grammar, and is ready for submission tonight. So I'll go through again quickly, just some highlights from the special education plan. And again, this will go into effect if approved by the Department of Education July 1st of this year for 3 years. So again, and as I mentioned, this is a requirement per Chapters 4 and Chapter 14 of the Pennsylvania School Code. Most notably, that the board is and the district is also required to present a plan for special education supports and programming that will be implemented during the tenure of the 3-year plan. And again, as I referenced before, this is a requirement under Chapter 4 for strategic planning, and Chapter 14, which governs special education in the state of Pennsylvania. This is also a requirement under that chapter, and it references back to Chapter 4 as well. And here are the 6 components of the plan: the district profile, core foundations, the assurances, the district level plan, which is the meat and the bulk of what goes into our programming, the plan submission, which we'll go through tonight after the board does have a chance to vote with this, and the plan output reports. These are all components of the special education plan. This is an older tool that we used in previous comprehensive planning years. They did not update it for this school year, for this comprehensive planning tool. There will be a new tool for the new comprehensive plan that will be due next school year. And again, some highlights and changes. We updated the administration and staff every year. When there are new staff added or new programs added, we do change staff and update that in the special education plan. We had an addition of board certified behavior analysts a few years ago. We will incorporate that support as part of our programming here in the district as well, in addition to the patent initiative, which also aligns to the behavior analysis or behavior analyst support they provide to the district. And again, the separate, as I mentioned before, is the update of caseloads and addition of special education staff and program profiles within the plan that gets updated every year as we incur changes and move people around from different buildings or programs from different building to building. And again, lastly is professional development, ongoing professional development for our teachers, for our parents, and for the district community as a whole. And that is it for the special education plan. And just a reminder, it was posted for a 28-day review beginning March 18th, and we're looking to have this board approved tonight and submitted by May 1st to the Department of Education. Any questions from any board members?
Thank you. So were there any questions from the board?
I do.
Okay, Mrs. Mitchell.
Hi, Mr. Marshallak. How are you? Could you just briefly go over the process that you went through with I know you had a committee and that you met certain times before the comprehensive planning meeting and maybe even more often. Could you just briefly, I know it's on the plan who participated, could you just briefly go over that? And then I wanted to thank you also for all the hard work that went into this, because this is one of the areas that we need to focus on, especially to bring our students who have special education needs the best services that they can get to help them move through our curriculum.
Certainly. So just to kind of remind everyone, this was a shortened time frame at no fault of the district, but because of how the Department of Ed rolled out the training format for the special ed plan. It wasn't released until December, and our phase district had to have this completed by May 1st. At the time, we're going through the bulk of the plan. So we developed a core team of parents, of teachers, general ed and special ed educators, building level administrators, principals, assistant principals, special ed supervisors, coordinators. So we had a nice cross-section of representation across the district. And we met every 2 weeks for a period of about a month and a half, 2 months prior to really before the closures. And the bulk of the homework was to tear apart the old plan, look for what we had that was that we currently have in our district that's not represented in the plan, and vice versa, things that we have in the plan that are no longer represented in the district at this time. So, and I have to give a lot of credit, to all the team, including our parents, who did a wonderful job and were very eager participants in this process and gave quite a good amount of insight to how the plan should look. We're very appreciative of that. Also had psychologists as well on this team. And at the end of getting the feedback and reviewing the plan, we went in and updated the plan into the system, and then did a couple reviews, posted it March 16th publicly on our website, as well as a parent link went out with the plan. An email address was created also to solicit feedback from the public, and that brings us up to this evening.
Hello, this is Mr. Desnoyers. Mr. Marshallak, I just have a question about the revision notice item in the presentation. I just wanted to confirm that was related to some type of ordinary updating of personnel or offices, things like that, and not in any way something that was required due to a deficiency on our part. I suspect the former, but wanted to confirm.
All right, so the SEPRIN, which, Mr. Desnoyers, what you're referencing, is basically what we call the teacher profile for every teacher in a special education program in the district. That captures caseload requirements and also captures a location of the building and the type of program that they deliver during the school year. So it's not any deficiency or a slap on the wrist, so to speak. This is really capturing our staff and our programs we offer. So we do update this every summer when there are changes or movements or caseloads that need to be updated in the summertime. So it is an annual thing we do that does not require a board action, but keeping up with our staffing and our programs and locations of those programs within the district.
We have one more comment from Rachelmitchell.
Thank you, Ms. Buford. I just again wanted to reiterate, I know that this was a lot of work, and I appreciate all the community that did participate in this, the parents and the staff involvement. Thank you.
Thank you.
There are no more comments from the board at this time.
Thank you, Mrs. Buford. At this time, we're going to move on to and I believe Mr. Robert Schwartz will be presenting. Thank you.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen of the board, Dr. McGarry. I hope everyone's been able to stay safe and healthy during this time. I'm here in recommendation of SOAR, Supporting Ongoing Achievement Responsibly, a math intervention program from the University of Pittsburgh's Institute for Learning to be used as part of our math intervention program at the middle school. In terms of why SOAR and why now? As you may recall, this is year one of a new core program, Envisions 2.0, that we've used at the middle school. And one of the benefits of having a core program that is so focused on visual representations and conceptual understanding is that it really shines a spotlight on some foundational math pieces. And what that spotlight has shown us is that our weakest math students have many of the same math weaknesses, especially in terms of fractional understanding and ratios and proportional reasoning. And so in some ongoing conversations with Tina Fulgham, our district, a district math consultant from Making Math Matter that's been working with us for various capacities over the last few years, this past year with the 6th grade, she recommended the SOAR program and that I reach out to the Institute for Learning. And in my conversations with them and through a deep exploration of their lessons and their program, it was clear that their systematic approach and the explicit instruction of their lessons really matched perfectly with recommendations from the What Works Clearinghouse, which is the research and development arm of the Department of Education. Some core characteristics of a SOAR lesson are that each lesson has a narrow focus addressing either a mathematical idea, a misconception, or problem-solving strategy. Teachers are asked to lead with the focus so that students can immediately start grappling rather than having to discover. They require interaction and engagement through creating representations. They expect students to do high-level thinking and reasoning, and that it provides scaffolding before gradually removing it. I'm asking that, if we move forward, that we purchase the PDF versions of a few of the modules. This allows use across buildings and through various teachers. The hope is that we would purchase areas on that we would use areas on math, multiplication and division, fractions, ratios and proportional reasoning, and expressions and equations. And that the hope is that we can begin professional development, again, the hope being that we can begin professional development in August in some form, and that we can make the most effective use of the program to have the maximum input on student performance. I'm happy to answer any questions you might have and provide any other documentation, or a further visual presentation if needed. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Schwartz. I believe there are some comments from the board.
Sure.
So the public is not able to see these documents, but I believe we're going to make some more of them available. But the presentation for this program, it does focus on exactly as Mr. Schwartz said, the ratio and proportion and fraction. And I can't say enough as a college math educator and a mathematician. It's really exciting to see that kind of focus, because I know that's precisely where this sort of break happens between kids in elementary school who are really excited about math and then kids in middle school and high school who get less excited about math. It's really that foundational understanding of fraction, ratio, proportion, and rate, which I see emphasized in this stuff. So I'm just excited to see that.
I appreciate that, Ms. Hagan. I will say that, as somebody who teaches collegiate level math and somebody who appreciates math, it is really a shame that students don't see how great and amazing math is, and we're hoping that that this sort of program will bring the beauty in math to them.
Mr. Schwartz, this is Ed Brown. I have a question. This looks to have amazing potential. Are there any other districts in the area utilizing it, or not in the area utilizing this that you're aware of?
Sure. There are. What I'm hearing from the Institute for Learning is that they're not allowed to give out specific names without getting the approval of the district themselves, which has obviously been very difficult at this time. But I can tell you that it is being used in several urban districts around New York, New Jersey, and Western Pennsylvania. And that the districts that I've spoken to that are most similar demographically to us would be Syracuse, New York, and there are 22,000 students.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Schwartz. I just wanted to see if I know that we've talked in the past about elementary level. I know this is for middle school. So I was wondering how we could get the elementary level excited to get up to the point where they will be using this and have this availability in middle school. And how much cost, I guess, the cost value of what you're asking.
Let me answer the question about the elementary first, and I'll let Mrs. Kelly, talk about the finances a bit.
Okay.
So we are launching the Envisions program that we launched at the middle school. We're launching at the elementary next year, and they're getting all their training, hopefully in June and and again in August. And I think we're going to go through the same process. The elementary has a 30-minute window for intervention or remediation, and through an RTI process. And I think we're going to see over the course of the year, as we shine that spotlight, we're going to see some foundational pieces that we need to remediate, rectify, deal with, attack. And the good thing about being able to get the SOAR program and to get the PDF version, some of the fractional piece, even the ratios and proportion piece, the multiplication division piece, they're not grade specific. They're content specific, and they cross various grade bands, starting typically, I would say the fractions piece starts in about second grade and goes up probably through about seventh. We'll be able to bring some of those pieces in as needed. And, if we have to go back and get some of the early numeracy pieces, we'll see where things fall after a year of using the program and see what that spotlight identifies.
Thank you.
Sorry, Gina. As for the financing part of this, so currently we are using Dreambox, and Dreambox is going to expire our subscription there, which was a 3-year subscription that we adopted a few years ago. So the cost of this would remain almost the same. Sorry, this is Christine Kelly speaking. I'm sorry. So the cost would remain the same in that we already have the money budgeted for some type of intervention for the middle school. The shift here would be that the cost initially comes in the beginning of this program, since many of them are PDF files and things like that, and it's not an ongoing cost like Dreambox was. So the shift is going to be, it's going to be a initial cost in year one, but then we won't see that reoccurring cost here as much.
Ms. Kelly, I know we asked about the cost, something that outlines the cost.
The official proposal?
Yes.
So the official proposal will not be available until we actually adopt this particular part, whether we go with the fractions and pieces like that. Each of the PDF files that are available to the teachers would be $5,500. And Mr. Schwartz, you could correct me if I'm wrong. So we would be looking at adopting 3 of those pieces, the fractional piece, and the ratios and proportions piece. So we're looking at it approximately a cost of, about $20,000 in the beginning, which again, we could cover with the cost that we associated with Dreambox, as well as title funds coming out of Beverly Hills, since it is a title school.
I'm sorry, Ms. Kelly, it's actually 4 units. It's the multiplication, division, structures, fractions, ratios and proportions, and expressions and equations. So it's going to be 4 modules. But you're right, at about $20,000 would be the cost. But again, that's an initial fee in the first year, not carrying on. So it ends up being less than what we paid for Dreambox over the last 3, significantly less.
Thank you.
Mr. Schwartz, the math intervention program at the middle school, what other resources would be utilized outside of SOAR, or is SOAR the sole resource this classroom would be utilizing?
Thank you, Mr. Neal. Robert Schwartz. This would be used in conjunction with some of the core materials through Envisions. Envisions is a comprehensive program that has core lessons, it has remediation, it has reteaching, it has an intervention system. But even in looking at all those pieces, the addition of SOAR really attacks at the root cause, which is why we wanted to bring that in and make that a component of the intervention, not the entire.
All right, thank you.
Hi, this is Rachelmitchell. Thank you, Mr. Schwartz. The question that I have is, you keep saying this is a PDF copy, so am I understanding that this is not an online math enrichment type experience or intervention experience for the students?
Excellent question. Again, Robert Schwartz. No, this is a fully explicit, teacher-driven instructional model. So the actual SOAR program itself is a physical binder for like the fractions, unit. It's a physical binder that they deliver. Now the option, instead of getting the physical binder that we would share amongst classrooms and share amongst teachers and perhaps get damaged over the course of time, is we could get the PDF version of it. But it is not an online program. It is, explicit instruction. It's actually fairly print heavy. As far as the teacher, facing materials and the student facing materials. But it is teacher to student, instruction and not an online piece.
So this is Rachel again. So how does this differ with the differentiation of instruction compared to Dreambox?
So Dreambox was more of a adaptive, computer program that it would adapt for every individual student. And then the program itself, Dreambox, would provide the instruction for that individual student. And it's an excellent program, for students who can work that way, where it meets them, at the level that they need. But in really diving deep into those recommendations from the What Works Clearinghouse, what makes it different, what evidence that they say makes the biggest difference with kids is explicit instruction, in particular in the visual representation of skill deficits. And there's no program that does that better than SOAR.
I understand that and I appreciate it. I guess my concern is in these times where we're home,
Sure.
People are doing online learning, virtual learning, is how will the teachers upload the PDF if students don't have a printer at home to print out these worksheets? How will they do that? So if we could just address how this would, if we were to continue virtually next year, what that would look like.
I will definitely have a deeper conversation with the trainers from SOAR, but as everyone is kind of adapting to COVID-19 and the way this is working, I know that they've been working with their districts who are using the program currently to kind of figure out what that looks like. But I can't answer that specifically, but I will absolutely check in with them. But like I said, I know they're having those conversations with their current district partners.
I think we have to take a step back, especially for the newer board members and those in the public. Drexel Hill Middle School and Beverly Hills Middle School have had to change their schedule multiple times over the last several years for cost savings purposes. As a result, the middle schools both eliminated teaming, a period of time where teachers could meet with parents during the school day. We shifted those periods of time in the middle school schedule to provide additional remediation and intervention. At one time, that was called to response to instruction and intervention. It's now called MTSS, a multi-system of supports and interventions. The system has changed. What we are now looking to do is when the school is back live, if we do come back live, or if it's virtual, we will be using these materials and resources to provide specific direct instruction to students that have a gap in their math skills. That would not be something necessarily done independent. So if we're back in person, there are periods of time in the middle school schedule known as reading intervention or math intervention. These teachers will use these much more up-to-date, more direct, explicit instruction practices that the teachers were asking for to provide better instruction driven by a math teacher instead of some other content teacher to bring up those math skills. If we're virtual, to Ms. Mitchell's comment, we will take this information and the documents if the board approves this, and if we are in the same situation we are next year, our plan is to provide more direct, explicit teaching from a math teacher to the students, as if they're in person. So these resources would work the same way as if we were in school or if we were virtually. I don't want there to be a misunderstanding. I think that's what's lost in this. This is different than the math program we've put in our elementary school and middle school that provides online resources to practice at home. This particular intervention that we're talking about this evening is to provide direct instruction from the teacher to the student during the school day so that they can accomplish their homework task or assessment tasks. Thank you.
There are no more comments from the board at this time.
Thank you, Mrs. Buford. The third agenda item for this evening's Education and Pupil Services Committee meeting is the 2019-2020 district calendar revisions, where board action will be required. And I believe that it says district administration will present. Thank you.
Yes, Ms. Curry, it's Dr. McGarry. I will go through the calendar and the suggestions, and if there are questions about the professional development aspects of this calendar, Ms. Kelly will jump in. What we have learned as a result of this transition to a virtual learning environment is, first of all, compliments to the Upper Darby School District teachers who have been outstanding, to the principals in the school district, to the central office staff, and to this board who has had the foresight to bring on new technology in the school district, learning management platforms such as Schoology. Congratulations to everybody involved, and thank you to the community members, the parents that are at home supporting us. We're happy to report that at this time, close to 90% of the students are engaging in a virtual setting. As I say when I communicate with the public, it's far from perfect. And we're obviously going to, if we're in the virtual environment starting next school year, increase our expectations of our teachers working with our students in a more direct manner, so that there's much more explicit interaction live with a teacher and a student as we go into next school year, balancing, obviously, the work-life balance that our teachers may be in if we're in a virtual setting. With that said, we know that many of our parents and our students are getting to the point where there's a burnout factor doing this work in a virtual setting. Our plan will be to do the following, as you can see here on the screen, and obviously on the public documents. For our high school students, grades 9 to 12, we are going to ask that there will be a last day of virtual instruction on May 21st. We would allow our high school students to have the opportunity to make up any and all assignments and catch up until May 29th. We are waiving final exams this year in this environment, as many school districts are. We'll be waiving final exams. However, there are students still participating in AP exams, so we want to provide them opportunity to complete the AP exams. So for our high school students, instruction will end in May 21st. We will begin to provide professional development and look at our course changes, look at our scheduling impact, that we're either going to open in person as we normally would in a school year, or make plans to be in a virtual setting. And that professional development for high school teachers will begin on May 22nd, and their last day would be June 10th for teachers. Again, last day of instruction for high school students, grades 9 to 12, May 21st. Obviously, that Friday is still contract and service day for teachers. And we will provide professional development to high school teachers from May 26th to June 10th. There's a lot of work to do with the high school schedule, course sequencing, and providing much more training and professional development for our teachers if we were to open in person or in a virtual setting next fall. We will also open up in a virtual summer school program as soon as possible, beginning after June 10th. We will also begin our extended school year for special education quickly after June 10th. That will be in a virtual setting. As many know, we've already made plans for a virtual graduation ceremony on June the 9th. So this portion would be the calendar revisions and changes that would impact our high school students. From K to 8, we will continue to provide live instruction and supports for our elementary school students up until May 29th. That will be the last day of instruction and work for our elementary school students and students in 7th and 8th grade. So essentially from kindergarten through 8th grade, we'll be instructing with our teachers and our students up until May 29th. Professional development for our elementary school teachers and our middle school teachers, as well as all the staff in the school district, will go from June 1st to June 10th so that we can prepare for a virtual opening next school year or an in-person opening next school year. Either way, we want to make sure that we are increasing and improving our opportunity to provide virtual learning, as well as prepare ourselves to be back in person next school year. These are calendar changes that would require board action. As the board knows, and I'm sure the public knows at this time, there is not an expectation from the Commonwealth that we have 180 full days of instruction, and we feel this would be a great opportunity to continue to provide instruction to our students and then regroup and make plans. We may have to be in a situation next school year, whether we're virtual, whether it's a combination of virtual and a flex schedule, meaning some students come in some days of the week and some students come in other days of the week, and that's going to require a lot of planning and professional development with our staff. We will also have professional development from May 26th to June 10th for high school staff, including secretarial staff and support staff, as well as K-8 from June 1st to June 10th with all levels of the organization. And there's expectations that professional development will be provided to the board in an update, in a calendar. And if there are any questions about that, I know Mrs. Kelly is on board with answering some of those questions this evening. But these are calendar revisions that we will not be the only school district in the county making some of these suggestions as well.
Thanks, Dr. McGarry. I'd like you to maybe reiterate, maybe expand a little bit about how much the focus of this professional development is having the flexibility to either go virtual, go in class, go for a mix in the upcoming summer program and school year, because realistically, we're not 100% sure what the situation is going to be in the starting of next year. So if you just want to expand upon that, and thank you.
Yes. The recent announcements from the governor's office as well as the Pennsylvania Department of Education, and I appreciate, obviously, there's a game plan to reopen the country, and in Pennsylvania, obviously, we're being hit fairly hard, and locally, we're being hit fairly hard. So there's a color-coordinated plan to reopen not only the economy, but also schools. Schools are a key part of the economy. And again, I want to reiterate that our teachers in this school district have been a blessing. I know there's a lot of comments about people looking at the online solution. It has been a struggle. It's been far from perfect for parents and students. And I think we should prepare ourselves that many more people will be coming to public schools as a result of some of this economic crisis, not leaving public schools, coming back to public schools. As a result of that, we need to prepare we have students that are registering in the school district right now. So I want to make that clear. We have to continue to allow students to register, and we have students registering now to come to the Upper Darby School District. And that's important. We've always provided an online opportunity for students, and now it has obviously thrust us into this K-12. So what the governor announced, and obviously Pedro Rivera, the Secretary of Education, has announced, is basically school districts. It's up to you to figure this out. School boards, superintendents, teachers, administrators, figure it out and make multiple plans. Make a plan for virtual learning, make a plan for virtual and in-person, and if we're all in person, it might not be all in person at one time. It might be in person and flex, meaning some students in, some students out. That takes a considerable amount of time. On top of that, Mr. Fields and members of the public and the board, we also have a high school that is still a comprehensive high school, and across the Commonwealth, there are certain requirements called Chapter 4 requirements, essentially specific courses and credits you have to take in order to graduate from high school. Because of COVID-19, we want to make sure that students are not losing out on progressing to the next sequence of courses, as well as filling in their gaps. That's going to take a tremendous amount of time to schedule and make sure that we have the best learning opportunities at the high school so that we are not in a position of reducing electives, that we are not in a position of preventing kids from progressing to the next sequence of courses. So Dr. Manfrey, Mrs. Simone, and I, and Ms. Kelly, as well as Mrs. Elgart, have a meeting with high school teachers, guidance counselors, and staff preparing for filling in the gaps next school year and making sure that we have a schedule that allows for students to fill in those gaps and not lose out on other academic opportunities. That takes a tremendous amount of planning when you're talking about over 900 students in each grade span and specific courses and sequencing of courses that we'll have to prepare for virtual, a mix, or in person, and we don't want to hold that back. So it's a lot of work. Now, if we back that up to the elementary school gaps that are there and the middle school gaps, our students that are building blocks such as prerequisite skills in literacy, phonemic awareness, letter sound recognition, math fluency, facts, Obviously, we're doing the best we can in this environment, but we want to provide a good schedule, whether we provide online instruction through the summer and then prepare ourselves for making schedule changes and tweaks to provide elementary school kids and middle school kids the opportunity to fill in those gaps. We want to respect our teachers who are the experts in seeing what is happening on the front lines of this and work together to reboot that plan. We'll get summer school going for the students that need it and then fill those gaps in when we're back into the school year. It's a tremendous amount of work to do it, but we're going to figure it out. We're going to do the best that we can. And thank God the Upper Darby School District teachers have been working as hard as they've been working with their own families, and the principals and this board for the foresight to do it. Tremendous amount of time and effort is going into it, and I think public schools are going to continue to be one of the greatest resources in this country. We are providing that resource. It's a lot of work that goes into that.
Thank you for those details, Dan.
This is Gina Curry. I really appreciate the administration and you, Dr. McGarry, for pulling together and students here in the Upper Darby School District. As a parent of an elementary school child and a high school senior, I can really say that I know that it hasn't been perfect to educate our children. So I thank you for that. The question that I had was about the summer. Because children in the Upper Darby School District have been getting on, and we've been attempting to have an equitable situation with the Chromebooks and everything Upper Darby faces with equity. I'm curious to know if there's a plan for, like we usually have, for packets that go home during the summer so that children can continue to be enriched during the summer months to prepare for the fall. And I wanted to know, in that, I know we have Chromebooks out, but wanted to know if that was going to be in a paper form, if that was going to be a paper packet like it usually is, or if you think that it's going to be online.
Great. Those of us who have been here long enough, we used to have a program called Summer Scholars Program, and there were documents that were provided to students for the summer, and we had these celebrations to do that in person. We used to actually have competitions amongst us. I'm sure Dr. Council's on here. His were famous celebrations at Highland Park. I don't know how he pulled them off, but they were famous. Red carpet and everything. I will tell you this, Ms. Curry, you're stealing my thunder, our thunder a little bit. The team we have here is awesome. We have a game plan to have what we're referring to, which are resources and materials for students to rebuild those skills in what was once called a Summer Scholars Program. And that's why we need this time, that we're going to make sure that we are developing that and then provide that to our community as a way to reassure and rebuild those skills in the summer, as well as an opportunity to provide online instruction. So both of those things are going to happen. To your comment, yes, we'll provide those documents to families that will be not virtual, but packets of information for them to work on, with an expectation that we'll check on them when they come back, not for a grade, but to see where we are. And I also want to comment on what Upper Darby's always done well. We've always done well with less. And that's not necessarily a great thing, but we have done well with it. We've recently written a grant. We received $491,000. So I want to compliment Bob Helinski, Tim Lambert, Wendy Elgart, and the administration for $491,000 in Chromebooks that we're going to be able to go out and replace and add to that. And why do I say that there's a positive in this? Yes, there's a crisis. But by going virtually and getting our students and encouraging, and thankfully our parents and our families are, we can now provide even better at-home practice by doing these recordings and doing this work and doing these virtual presentations, that will be able to provide this, that when families are at home and they want to practice reading skills with an elementary school student or math skills, the parent can have the student log into Schoology and they can see these tutorials at home. Instead of the old-fashioned just do homework on a homework book, there could be instruction in a different, more technological way. We were moving in this direction. Whether it's good, bad, or indifferent, COVID-19 has forced us to do this faster. And we just need to get better at it. And we're far from perfect. We're all dealing with it, especially if we have kids at home and we're trying to be teachers and work the hours that we're working. But let's focus on some positives too. The technology is increasing and we're moving in a positive direction. And I can't thank the district enough and this board and the public for helping us with this. There's positives and we're going to get through it. We definitely have to increase the teaching and learning if we're in the same situation next year, however.
Thank you. This is Rachelmitchell. Dan, and I just want to commend, we have an exceptional staff at Upper Darby. Ed Brown and I have participated in numerous board leadership calls with the Delaware County school boards and regionally in Southeast Pennsylvania over the last 7 weeks. The way our district is being led is exceptional. We did the best we could in a very, very timely manner for our 12,500 students. The message that I really want to send is to our staff. We know that everyone here, from administration down to our crossing guards, have adapted and done what they could that was in the best interest of our kids and our families, and we would like to keep that moving forward. I do just want to quote an article that just came out this evening where Pedro Rivera says, so I think the message for parents is that we're planning for the best, but we're preparing for the worst, he said. I would encourage parents to start to think the same way. It could be in an environment where we're all wearing masks to school and to work, he said. It could be in an environment where we're looking at what social distancing would look like in a classroom, in a school, in a cafeteria, through our sporting events, arts, enrichment events. It's a matter of what transportation would look like. This team has to think of everything for the best case scenario and the worst case scenario. So I just want to thank you all tonight for your really hard work. Keep up the great work. You got a lot of cheerleaders behind you. So thank you so much.
Just a quick addition. I just wanted to co-sign on what Ms. Mitchell just said. I've been keeping my eye on other districts in Philadelphia as well. But, it's clear that we are, not just one step ahead, several steps ahead. And it makes me stick my chest out and be proud of how we've adapted and implemented the programs that we have. And I think we've done our students a service, based on our effort and the professionalism and the incredible work ethic and determination of our staff to make sure that we keep the education process going as normal as possible. So it's very clear to me that we are far ahead of where other districts are, and that we're really positioning ourselves to continue on the great path that I feel that we're on from an educational standpoint. Thank you.
That concludes the Education and Pupil Services meeting for this evening.
Ms. Buford, were there any public comments?
We received a public comment about the calendar. We are assuming the person did not indicate which agenda item they were referring to. This comment has been received from Anthony Rigoso from 817 Vermont Road in Drexel Hill. It was received today at 6:44 p.m. And here is Mr. Rigoso's comment. What is the additional cost to the district for continuation of virtual schooling as compared to your normal budget for the school year where children attend in person?
Ms. Curry, is it okay? It's Dr. McGarry if I respond to that question.
Absolutely. Thank you, Dr. McGarry.
Yes, to Mr. Rigoso and to the public, at this point in time, the costs to get us to a virtual setting will be continued infrastructural improvements. Thankfully, the school district has written what are, and Bob Helinski deserves credit for this. We have been involved in grants, technology grants, that offset the millions of dollars of costs to get us to where we are today. We're still not where we need to be from a technology standpoint, from going one-to-one. Hopefully the $491,000 in grant money that we were just awarded will close that gap. We're trying to get as close to one-on-one as possible, so the up cost and the residual cost of maintaining technology, computers, and then infrastructure in the community. We've been lucky during this period of time that there has not been a cost to the district yet for providing what we would call some reimbursement for internet services. I know that charter schools and some schools charge the school district, and we have to pay for internet providers for some virtual learning that goes on, whether it's a charter school or even students that attend our own Upper Darby virtual school here. We allow for reimbursement for the cost of internet at that time. So when it's all said and done, there will be a considerable cost to go virtual. Not much of significant savings compared to in-person, other than these costs. The biggest cost I can talk about right now that we know of, until we obviously get through this pandemic and close out this budget, and usually in September or October we have a better handle of what this year looked like. I can say right now that the biggest cost savings, and they're real savings, are in our substitute services. So normally we have a couple $1 million in our budget for sub-services. At this point in time, since March 13th until where we are right now, we don't have as many substitute teachers, which is interesting. In a normal brick and mortar school day, there are teachers who call out sick. Right now in the virtual setting, our substitute costs are not as substantial as they normally are operating in a school. That is an area where we should see a savings going into next school year. Our hope is to use those dollars to offset the technology costs and the professional development costs. We've also moved into a platform called Schoology. There are subtleties and nuances to these learning management systems that, like any good software company, they're kind of a boutique add-on. So there's different services that you have to pay for and add on. And we will have to upgrade some of our learning management, some of our technology related to conducting live sessions, backgrounds for those live sessions. All in all, right now, the cost, there'll be some upfront costs, but I would say that a virtual setting, as far as the day-to-day maintenance of facilities and buildings, over time, we could anticipate that our costs in the budget will not be as substantial as they have in the past, because we're not running our brick and mortar schools. However, what we are still doing, we're still feeding students, we still have crossing guards out, we still have our teachers working, but I would say the biggest cost would be probably in the electric bills, the water bills, things of that nature that we'll see what they look like when we reconcile the budget. And I can say right now that we are seeing a savings in our substitute teachers.
Thank you, Dr. McGarry. Are there any other public comments, Mrs. Buford?
There are no more public comments related to the education and pupil services agenda items.
Thank you. Mrs. Curry?
Thank you, President Brown. This concludes the Education and Pupil Services meeting for this evening. Thank you.
Mr. Marshallak, would you like to review the agenda items presented this evening?
So first, well, all three items this evening were for board action. The first of which was the special education plan. Again, requirement is chapters 4 and 14. Number 2 was the Institute for Learning SOAR, which is also for board action, math intervention for middle school students for next school year. And agenda item number 3 is changes to the district calendar and professional development for this school year.
Thank you, Mr. Marshallak. Okay, we're going to vote on these one at a time. We'll start with agenda item number 1, the special education plan. Please signify by saying aye, your concurrence with the special education plan. All those in favor say aye.
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 Wait, we're not taking, wait, excuse me. I don't believe we're taking a vote here. We're just simply trying to see if we're going to move these agenda items forward to the next board meeting for a vote.
Thank
For
you.
the special meeting.
Thank you, Mrs. Mitchell. All those in favor of moving this forward, please signify by saying aye.
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 This is Dr. Haig. I agree.
Anyone opposed to moving this forward, please signify by saying no in your name. Okay, anyone abstaining? Okay. We'll move that. That moves forward, the special education plan. The Institute for Learning, SOAR. Are we okay with moving that item forward? Please signify by saying aye or I agree.
Aye. Aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
I agree. I agree.
Anyone opposed? Anyone abstaining? Okay, that moves forward. The third agenda item, the district calendar revisions. Please signify by saying I agree or aye to move that forward.
I agree.
I agree.
Aye.
I'm comfortable with moving it forward.
I concur.
I agree with moving it forward.
Anyone not comfortable moving it forward, signify by saying your name and no or I don't agree. Any abstentions? That moves forward as well. A motion is in order for the adjournment of the Education and Pupil Services Committee meeting.
So moved.
Seconded.
Tina?
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Meeting adjourned.